The wind, a sculptor of the ages, swept across the desolate plain, carrying with it the fine dust of forgotten millennia. It was here, in this vast, silent expanse, that the ancient rocks stood sentinel. They were not mere stones, but giants of granite and sandstone, carved into fantastic shapes by the tireless hands of time. To the passing eye, they were silent, inanimate monuments to a bygone era. But to Alara, who had lived her entire life in their shadow, they whispered. Alara was not a sorceress, nor was she a prophet. She was simply a girl with an ear for the unheard. Since she was a child, she had spent her days among the rocks, tracing the patterns of their erosion, feeling the cool, smooth surface of their faces. She learned their language, a tongue spoken not with words, but with the rustle of dry grass, the hum of cicadas, and the deep, resonant echoes of the wind. The rocks told her stories of a time before the deserts were deserts, when a great river, wide and deep, snaked through the valley. They spoke of the creatures that drank from its waters, great beasts with horns like twisted branches, and graceful, long-necked animals that grazed on the lush foliage. They whispered of the first people who came, not with fire and tools, but with a deep reverence for the land. They learned to live in harmony with the river, painting their stories on the rock faces, their pigment long since faded, but their essence still lingering in the deep-set grooves. One evening, as the sun bled into the horizon, casting the rocks in hues of fiery orange and deep violet, Alara heard a new whisper, one she had never heard before. It was not a story of the past, but a warning of the future. The rock she was leaning against, an immense, jagged spire known as the Silent Sentinel, trembled with a low, mournful vibration. It spoke of a great thirst, a coming silence that would drain the land of its life, and even the wind of its voice. The river, the lifeblood of their ancestors, was calling out, its ancient spirits stirring in its long, dry bed. Alarmed, Alara rushed back to her village. She told the elders what the Silent Sentinel had whispered to her. They listened with kind, weary smiles. The old ones had long since forgotten the language of the rocks. They saw only the dust and the heat, and they believed the land had always been this way. They told her to rest, that the desert could play tricks on a lonely mind. But Alara knew. The whispers were growing louder, more frantic. The next day, she packed a small bag with water and dried fruit and set off towards the heart of the Great Plain, towards the place where the ancient river was said to have begun. The journey was long and arduous. The sun was a relentless eye, and the landscape a maze of shifting sands and razor-sharp stones. But the rocks guided her. A small cairn would point the way. A strange pattern on a rock face would offer a landmark. They were her silent companions, her cartographers of the desert. Finally, after days of travel, she arrived at a deep gorge. At the bottom, a mere trickle of water seeped from the rock face, the last memory of the once mighty river. Alara knelt, placing her hand on the parched earth. The rocks here were alive with a desperate, collective plea. They spoke of a hidden source, a subterranean spring that had been blocked by a landslide long ago, choked by the weight of time and earth. With newfound purpose, Alara began to dig. Her hands, calloused from years of living in the desert, worked tirelessly. She dislodged rocks, cleared away ancient mud, and prayed to the spirits of the river. As the sun set on the third day of her labor, her shovel struck something hollow. With a final heave, she pulled away a large, flat stone, and a gush of cool, clear water erupted from the earth. The water, at first a modest stream, quickly grew into a torrent. It cascaded down the gorge, a life-giving pulse returning to the withered land. Alara watched, a tear of exhaustion and relief tracing a path down her dusty cheek. She had listened to the whispers, and in doing so, had helped the land remember its own song. The rocks, now washed clean by the flowing water, no longer mourned. They sang. Their ancient voices, once full of sorrow and warning, now echoed with a joyous chorus, a timeless hymn of life and renewal that filled the valley and promised a future as rich and enduring as the rocks themselves.